Technical basis. In the food analysis video I used the programming in JavaScript for HTML5 pages, which produced the presented graphics. In the program we can see the lines that determine the central value of an institution's nutritional recommendations, in the case of World Health Organization. But we could use, for example, DRI, which is a reference system for dietary consumption in the United States. We can also see the lines that show the weight of food separated into nutrients. And we also have an area that analyzes the deviation acceptable by the institution. In other words, the values presented have to leave the recommendation range to appear on the chart. And so you can see the deviation from the corn snack. Let's use DRI instead of WHO, we would have another margin for the graph. The DRI generates a variation acceptance greater than that of the WHO, so it is marked that the deviation of the corn snack is smaller in the DRI than in the OMS. And even if we used breakfast we would have other values. It is clear that in DRI it shows that breakfast does not generate any deviation, whereas the WHO generates a slight deviation. But if we change the values of peanuts to 18 grams, both WHO and DRI would be marking without deviation. But why in the video was not put 18 grams of peanut for the graph generate no deviation? Because it must be understood that the use of these standards is to see a way it cannot disrupt the pleasure of feeding. If you have to do very detailed measures you lose that food is a system of pleasure generation. The search is for pleasure to be closer and closer to the values considered ideal by the health system. Note that the use of numerical accuracy of food does not prove to be of extreme importance, but it should give us insight into which deviations are bad. For example, I consider the Mediterranean diet, plus non-radical vegetarianism as the best food, and in this case the carbohydrate content would lower and unsaturated fats from vegetable oils would grow a lot. Therefore, knowledge of food recommendations and calculations is important, but there are other factors, such as saturated fat consumption, glycemic index curve, and many others that make a difference and determine whether a food is good for health or not. It was not put on the video, but a hamburger from a large food company has macronutrients balanced. Using such an example in the video could defend the use of such food, but due to what was said here, would lead to a false concept because other substances contained in it are harmful when used routinely.